Hi, it's me, your friendly, everyday anarchist, neighborhood anarchist, talking to you from the Catskills Mountain, New York. This is Baby Boomer. No, it's not. It's Late Boomer, and I'm your host, Stephen J. Morris. Today we're going to talk about history. And we're going to show a couple of videos. So, I want to preface one thing. This is historical videos. It mostly takes place in 1970. And there's segments where protesters are yelling to counter-protesters, conservatives, and to the police, riot police. And what was popular back then was during protest, they used to chant Sieg Heil to the cops. Why did they do that? To mock them. But I remember the first time I heard conservative talking points back in 1970s. The conservatives pundits said the reason they were going to Sieg Heil is because they were Nazis. They were accusing anti-war protesters of being Nazis because they were chanting Sieg Heil. So that was the first time I heard conservative talking points. But you'll see that on the first video. Alright, let's start this off. Those who don't know, I was a member of SDS back in 1969. And to be part of the group, I had to read books like this. See that? You know what that is? That's the Communist Manifesto. What type of reading it was? Boring. Boring. Where's that famous line? Where's that famous line of the interview? Look at this. This must have been a college thing. The first line of this book was, "A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism. All powers of the old Europe has entered a holy alliance to exorcise the specter. Pope and the Tsar, Metternich, Gunnovich, French radicals and German policemen. Where is the party in opposition that has been decried as communist by its opponents in power?" That was it. That was a big... And Marx goes into all this philosophical, analytical, theoretical, tedious boredom. Sort of like... listening to Noam Chomsky talking about language. So, I had to keep my eyes open, my 15-year-old eyes open when I read this. Then, a year later, this book came out. Yeah. This book changed my life. Do It by Jerry Rubin. He was the leader of the Yippies. He was also a defendant in the Chicago 7 trial. And look at this book. Photos and cartoons and pictures of naked people and yeah. And it was fun reading. It was like reading a comic book. But what was the part that really got me? It was a game changer, as they say. So anyway, so that's what changed my mind about my political outlook. Politics wasn't just a strict discipline of revolution. Abbie Hoffman had a book. Matter of fact, I think I have a couple of Abbie Hoffman books, but he had books like Revolution for the Hell of It, Break Every Law but the Law of even the Law of Gravity. They put a fun aspect to it. So, I was here. That was my Maoist button from back then when I was serious. Then I was starting to wear buttons like this. The Yippies. Yippies. My whole outlook of politics changed. I didn't have to come home to a counterculture lifestyle while I was outside trying to be a tough revolutionary Bolshevik. I was just a fun-loving yippee! So what was the Yippies? The Yippies were influenced by the Living Theater. For those who don't know who the Living Theater is, it was an experimental theatric group where they took the fourth wall. They destroyed it. So there was no audience and there was no performers. Everybody was a participant. You came into a Living Theater production or a play, you were also part of it, whether you liked it or not. You had to go up on stage and talk about your puppy or things like that. Then, instead of, there was the Guerrilla Theater. The Guerrilla Theater, they, instead of people coming to their theater, the theater group brought it to the streets. They used to do performances on the street of various plays. They even wore costumes. So that's where the Yippies came from. They used to be into pranks, political pranksters. They would go to Wall Street and throw money down to the floor, the floor of the stock exchange. They would throw money from the balcony. And they used to watch all these people run and try to dive and get the money. These guys in suit and ties, which showed the absurdity of capitalism. My favorite prank, they never did this, but the Yippies did it. No, they didn't. I take that back. They never did it. There was a plan to hijack the St. I think it was the Staten Island ferry. Hijack it and say, we want to go to Cuba. And if you don't go to Cuba, we're all going to walk on one side of the boat. So that never happened. But that was one of the many stunts they were going to do. But a stunt that they actually pulled off, let me preface this. I grew up like a typical American. My parents took me to Disneyland. My mom used to take me to movies, Disney movies, and I hated it. I hated Disneyland. Matter of fact, the whole put on a happy face and sing a song type of mentality alienated me. I hated Disney. I hated we had to watch the TV show every Sunday night. And I just despised Disney. It was about maintaining a plastic society. It is hilarious now how left Disney went ever since uh, what was his name? Walt Disney died in 1966 and had his head frozen. But uh, now they're all upset. Now this is 2022, okay? The conservatives are upset because The Little Mermaid, a Disney movie, is black. They're upset because she's a black actress. That's how ridiculous it is. So, what happened in 1970, I didn't participate, I heard. I heard the Yippies are going to take over Disneyland. And they did. I couldn't go for various reasons. I wish I would have went. But they took over Disney. And there's the video after my little talk here is about that incident. But it was great. It really, American death culture was taken to task. So, I wanted to introduce two videos. The first video is about when the Canadian Yippies, remember this was the Youth International Party, when the Canadians in 1970 invaded America on foot. And they're confronted with the cops and a couple of conservative I don't know who they were. There was a counter-protest by conservatives. That was hilarious. This was, I think, the same time the Yippies invaded Disneyland. So enjoy the video, and we'll meet again. This is video day. Get your popcorn, take off your shoes, and if you're good looking, take off your pants. So, I'll talk to you later. So long.
so sorry.
No, it's the daughters of the American Revolution. Sieg Heil! Sieg Heil!
Why the hell should you love me?
You're a little angry. We're trying to save you from yourself. Because you're going to kill yourself.
Don't save me from me. Save me from you. Go home.
I guess you're still alive.
Go home.
How come they have
Never ask a man who goes to war.
That's 21, 24, 27, 30, 3.
Assassination of John F. Kennedy, and 9/11. Quality entertainment, family environment, and 365 days of happiness. Disney has closed on 2 separate occasions: the National Day of Mourning after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and 9/11. But one of the lesser known closures that no one is talking about is the Yippie invasion of 1970. A protest that led police in full riot gear to evacuate nearly 30,000 people. To better understand what happened on this fateful day, we need to dig deeper into the Yippie movement. In the heydays of the free speech movement, a new counterculture spawned by the name of the Youth International Party, or Yippie for short. Constantly challenging the status quo, the Yippies employed theatrical gestures such as street theaters and powwows to spread their message. Since its conception, Disneyland has banned men with long hair from entering into the gates. In the late 1960s, for the first time, Disney changed their strict dress code, thus making it a perfect target for Yippie powwow. Thousands of flyers were passed amongst the masses with a rather unusual itinerary. Events included Black Panther's breakfast at Aunt Jemima's Pancake House and a female gathering in Fantasyland to liberate Minnie Mouse. The pinnacle of this powwow was the occupation of Tom Sawyer Island to barbecue Porky Pig. It's not certain if barbecuing Porky Pig was just a jab at the establishment or that they didn't realize he is not a Disney character. Word reached Disney officials on what the Yippies were planning, and it did not sit well, to say the least. 2 years prior, there was a protest at the Democratic National Convention where nearly 10,000 individuals caused riots. Executives were not about to have that and put together a plan of action. It was a normal, magical morning, like that of any other Disneyland day. Families gathered from near and far, hoping to enjoy the festivities, but they weren't the only ones. As the Yippies made their way to the entrance, managers were waiting for them. Manned at each turnstile, Upper Disney management greeted guests as well as those who met the Yippie criteria. Long hair, hippie-esque clothing. But when they got to the gates, they were pulled aside and prompted with a simple task. If you're here to have a good time, you're more than welcome to visit Disneyland. But if you're here to cause trouble, you're eventually going to be asked to leave the park. The Yippies began to assemble by the masses. As promised, the group began to consume Disneyland. At last, the assembly of the Yippies was complete. That's where things took an interesting turn. Amongst those in attendance, 300 Yippie members actually paid the park admission to enter. Not nearly as many as they expected, let alone the founders themselves. In fact, it is unclear if they were ever going to attend this massive event. The dwindling of the Yippie gathering seemed imminent, as there was no liberation of Minnie Mouse, nor a pancake breakfast with the Black Panthers. As fate would have it, this did not stop the more seasoned Yippies for giving an impromptu leadership. Dozens of Yippies converged on the Chicken in the Sea restaurant, a mutiny of sorts as they ascended the ropes of this ship-like establishment. From there they began to chant, "Ho, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh is gonna win," to up their political performance. Although the crowds were uneasy and annoyed, no one was prevented from getting their lunch. The Yippies knew at this time they needed to up the ante. At the break of dawn, Anaheim and Fullerton police assembled backstage on the Disneyland property. In an attempt to keep the peace, they strategically assembled behind Main Street USA in Tomorrowland. Over 150 officers in full-fledged riot gear were ready to be dispersed. As much as the leaders of the Yippie movement spent planning their big move, Disney was one step ahead of the game. Not only did they line the outskirts of the park with law enforcement, they had covert management scattered throughout the park that used code words over walkie-talkies. Even a command center was set up to manage the operations of monitoring the park. Disneyland was prepared. Throughout the day, Disney leadership periodically shadowed the more seasoned Yippies throughout the park, gently reminding them to keep things cool and respect the other families that were visiting the park. The Yippies insisted on making their presence known and moved to the climax of their protest, Tom Sawyer Island. The group once again converged and moved to Tom Sawyer Island by the droves. In an attempt to make a statement, they overtook the fort and replaced it with the Yippie flag. Although their attempt was admirable, yet again did they fail to make waves, nor barbecue Porky Pig. In a last-ditch effort, they finally migrated to Main Street USA. What the Yippies did not expect is that they were going to be met by a large assembly of police. Lined in front of the castle and up and down Main Street in formation, the police were on standby. Not deterred from their presence, the Yippies began to make a snake dance all around the central hub and marched with the Disneyland band chanting obscenities. Fed up with the antics of the Yippies, patrons retaliated. An eruption of God Bless America began from those who could no longer take it. United they stood as they attempt to drown out the ruckus. It's rumored that one of the Yippies attempted to remove the American flag from a street post, but was immediately intercepted by a God-fearing patriot. A small altercation ensued. Enough was enough. Police, with the help of cast members, began evacuating the entire park. It is rumored that nearly 30,000 people were removed from the park that day, including families as well as Yippies. The chaos came to a screeching halt before any real damage occurred. The park was once empty and remained closed for 6 hours. Was the powwow worth disrupting the happiest place on earth? You decide.
Dad, I gotta get in there.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
That's what I thought.